The galaxy was a big place, but one group controlled most of it, the Arcturan Empire. For hundreds of years, they had taken over star systems and ruled with an iron fist. Any planet or species that tried to fight back was crushed without mercy. When Earth's people first made contact with them, the Empire didn't take humans seriously. To them, Earth was just a small, unimportant planet full of primitive beings who barely knew how to travel in space. The Emperor of the Arcturans held a meeting in his grand palace when he heard about humanity. His advisors told him about Earth's attempts to communicate peacefully. Instead of taking it as a sign of goodwill, the Emperor laughed. He called Earth's leaders foolish and mocked their efforts on live broadcasts across the galaxy. The people of Earth watched these broadcasts, feeling both anger and shame. How could they stand up to such a powerful enemy? Daniel Carter, a young scientist from New York, felt this humiliation deeply. He worked at an observatory studying stars and planets, but lately, his mind had been elsewhere. Every time he saw the Emperor laughing at Earth, he clenched his fists. One evening, as he stared at the night sky through his telescope, he thought about what Earth could do to change its fate. They couldn't win by begging or negotiating. Humanity needed something stronger, something that would make the Empire think twice before laughing again. Elena Rivera, a skilled fighter pilot, shared Daniel's frustration. Her squadron had been grounded because of budget cuts, leaving her stuck on Earth while others planned for war. She often visited Daniel at the observatory to talk about the future. Together, they dreamed of ways to protect Earth and prove its worth to the galaxy. One night, Daniel showed Elena some stolen blueprints he had found. These were designs for advanced alien technology that Earth's deep space probes had intercepted. "If we can build ships using this tech," Daniel said, pointing to the plans, "we might have a chance." Elena nodded, her eyes lighting up with excitement. But she also knew it wouldn't be easy. Building even one ship would require resources Earth didn't have much of: money, materials, and time. Word spread quickly among a small group of like-minded individuals. Liam O'Connor, a retired general, joined their discussions. So did Rachel Monroe, an engineer known for her work on experimental engines. Even Marcus Hale, a politician who believed in humanity's potential, became part of the team. Each person brought something valuable to the table, and together, they started making plans. Their goal was clear: create a fleet of ships capable of standing against the Arcturan Empire. It was a bold idea, almost impossible, but no one wanted to give up. Daniel spent long nights working on calculations, while Elena trained pilots in secret, preparing them for battles they hoped would never come. Rachel tinkered with prototypes in her lab, trying to turn alien designs into reality. And Marcus traveled around the world, convincing leaders to support the project. Not everyone agreed with their plan. Some countries thought it was too risky to challenge the Empire. Others worried about spending so much money on space when there were problems on Earth that needed fixing. But Daniel and his team refused to listen to the doubters. They knew that if humanity didn't act now, the Empire would only grow stronger, and Earth's days would be numbered. As weeks turned into months, progress began to show. The first prototype ship, named Aurora Asterisk, took shape in a hidden facility. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. When Elena saw it for the first time, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity could rise above its struggles and become something greater. But the road ahead was still long, and the Empire wasn't going to wait patiently. Little did anyone know, the real test was closer than they thought. Daniel and Elena's secret meetings at the observatory soon grew into something bigger. What started as quiet discussions between two people turned into a movement that included some of Earth's brightest minds. Each member of the group brought their own skills to the table, knowing that humanity's survival depended on their combined efforts. Liam O'Connor, the retired general, was skeptical at first. He had spent decades in the military, fighting smaller conflicts on Earth, but nothing compared to what they were planning now. When Daniel showed him the stolen alien blueprints, Liam raised an eyebrow. "You really think we can build something like this?" he asked, pointing to the complex designs. Daniel nodded firmly. "We have to try," he said. "If we don't, the Empire will keep laughing at us, and then they'll destroy us." Rachel Monroe, the engineer, was already hard at work in her lab. She pored over the blueprints day and night, trying to understand how the alien technology worked. It wasn't easy. The designs were unlike anything humans had ever seen before, with strange symbols and components that didn't match Earth's science. But Rachel was determined. She knew that if she could figure out how to replicate even part of the technology, it would give humanity a fighting chance. Marcus Hale played a different role. As a politician, his job was to convince world leaders to support the project. This was no small task. Many governments were hesitant to invest in such a risky plan. Some argued that Earth should focus on defense instead of offense. Others worried about the cost, saying it would drain resources needed for everyday life. Marcus listened patiently to their concerns, but he never gave up. "Imagine a future where Earth isn't afraid anymore," he told them. "A future where we stand tall among the stars. Isn't that worth fighting for?" Slowly, his words began to win people over. As the team worked tirelessly, tensions rose. Not everyone believed in the project. Protests broke out in cities around the world, with some people calling it a waste of time and money. Others accused the group of starting a war that Earth couldn't win. Even within the team, there were moments of doubt. One evening, after a particularly tough day, Alina sat alone in the observatory, staring at the stars. Daniel found her there and sat beside her. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" she asked softly. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But I do know one thing. If we don't try, we've already lost." Alina nodded, taking a deep breath. She knew he was right. Giving up wasn't an option, not when so much was at stake. Progress came slowly but steadily. Rachel managed to create a working prototype of an advanced engine based on the alien designs. It wasn't perfect, but it was faster and more efficient than anything Earth had built before. Meanwhile, Liam helped design new weapons systems, drawing from his years of experience in combat. He trained a group of pilots, including Elena, teaching them tactics that might help them survive against the Empire's superior forces. The first real test came when the prototype ship, *Aurora*, was ready for its maiden flight. Everyone gathered at the hidden facility to watch. Rachel stood nervously beside the ship, checking every detail one last time. Elena climbed into the cockpit, her hands gripping the controls. "Ready?" she called out through the comm system. "Ready," Rachel replied, giving her a thumbs up. With a roar, *Aurora* lifted off the ground, slicing through the sky like a blade. The team watched in awe as the ship disappeared into space, its engines glowing brightly against the darkness. For the first time in months, hope filled the air. But the celebration was short-lived. News arrived that the Arcturan Empire had intercepted messages about the project. They weren't amused anymore. Humanity's fleet was still far from complete, and the Empire wouldn't wait for them to finish. Daniel looked at Alina, his expression grim. "They're coming," he said. "And we'll be ready," she replied, her voice steady. The countdown to war had begun. Building the fleet was harder than anyone had imagined. The stolen alien blueprints were complicated, and turning them into working ships required endless hours of trial and error. Rachel Monroe spent most of her time in the lab, surrounded by tools, wires, and half-finished prototypes. Her hands were often covered in grease, and her eyes showed the strain of sleepless nights. Still, she refused to give up. "If we don't get this right," she muttered to herself one evening, "we're all dead." Liam O'Connor faced his own challenges. Training pilots for a war against an advanced enemy wasn't easy. Many of the recruits had never fought in space before, and the simulations he ran were brutal. Elena Rivera pushed them hard, sometimes too hard. She knew that mistakes in real combat would cost lives, so she demanded perfection. After one particularly tough session, A young pilot named Chris approached her. "Do you really think we can win?" he asked, his voice trembling. Alina looked at him, her expression firm. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I do know we'll die trying." The project also faced resistance from within Earth itself. Some countries didn't want to share their resources, arguing that they needed them for their own people. Others thought the whole idea was reckless. Protests erupted in cities around the world, with crowds chanting slogans like "No war in space" and "Save Earth first." Marcus Hale worked tirelessly to calm the unrest. He traveled from one nation to another, holding meetings and giving speeches. "This isn't just about us," he told a group of skeptical leaders. "It's about proving that humanity deserves a place among the stars. If we don't fight now, there won't be a future to save." Despite the setbacks, progress continued. The second prototype ship, named *Phoenix*, was completed after months of effort. It was bigger and more advanced than *Aurora*, with stronger engines and better weapons. Rachel tested it herself, flying it through a series of rigorous trials. When she landed, her face was pale but triumphant. "It works," she said simply, stepping out of the cockpit. The team cheered, but their joy was short-lived. They all knew the Empire wouldn't wait for them to finish. One night, Daniel Carter stood on a hill outside the facility, staring at the stars. The weight of what they were doing pressed heavily on him. He thought about the millions of lives depending on their success, and the millions more who might die if they failed. Alina joined him, standing silently by his side. "You okay?" she asked after a while. "I'm just thinking," Daniel replied. "What if we're not ready? What if we're rushing into something we can't handle?" Alina sighed. "We don't have a choice. If we wait any longer, the Empire will crush us. At least this way, we have a chance." Her words stayed with Daniel as he returned to work. There was no time for doubt, not when every second counted. The team pushed forward, driven by a mix of fear and determination. Liam trained the pilots harder than ever, drilling them until they could execute maneuvers without hesitation. Rachel fine-tuned the ships, making sure every bolt and circuit was perfect. Marcus kept rallying support, convincing more nations to contribute materials and funding. Slowly but surely, the fleet began to take shape. By the end of the third month, 10 ships were ready for action. They weren't enough to take on the entire Arcturan Empire, but they were a start. The team gathered to watch as the ships launched one by one, their engines lighting up the night sky. For a moment, everyone forgot their worries and let themselves feel hope. But the Empire was watching. Spies reported that the Arcturans were preparing for an attack. Their fleets were gathering near Earth's borders, ready to strike. Daniel looked at the others, his jaw tight. "They're coming," he said. "And we'll be ready," Alina replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. The attack came without warning. One moment, Earth's skies were calm, filled with the soft glow of stars. The next, they erupted in fire and chaos. Massive ships from the Arcturan Empire descended upon cities across the globe, unleashing devastating beams of energy that tore through buildings and left craters where homes once stood. The Empire had struck first, aiming to crush humanity before their fleet could grow strong enough to fight back. Alina Rivera watched the destruction unfold from the command center. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of a console, her eyes fixed on the screen showing live footage of the devastation. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble, and millions of people were running for their lives. The screams of survivors echoed over emergency channels, mixing with the static of broken communications. "We're not ready," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the alarms blaring around her. Daniel Carter stood nearby, his face pale but resolute. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "We have no choice now," he said, turning to Alina. "If we don't act, this is just the beginning." Marcus Hale worked frantically to rally Earth's leaders. Governments that had once hesitated to support the project now poured every available resource into the fleet. Factories operated around the clock, producing weapons, engines, and supplies. Civilians joined the effort too, volunteering in droves to help build ships or care for the wounded. Even children collected scrap metal to contribute to the cause. Humanity was united, not by hope, but by desperation. Liam O'Connor took charge of organizing the defense. With only 10 ships ready for battle, he knew they couldn't face the Empire head-on. Instead, he devised a plan to hit the enemy where it hurt most: their supply lines. Using smaller, faster vessels like *Aurora* and *Phoenix*, they would launch surprise attacks on Imperial convoys, disrupting their operations and buying Earth more time to prepare. Rachel Monroe stayed at the lab, working tirelessly to improve the fleet's technology. She modified the ship's engines to make them even faster and upgraded the weapons systems to pack a stronger punch. Sleep became a luxury she couldn't afford, but she didn't complain. Every second counted, and she refused to let exhaustion slow her down. Elena led the first counterattack. Piloting *Aurora*, she guided a small squadron of ships toward an Imperial convoy near Jupiter. The enemy didn't expect resistance. They were too confident in their superiority. When Elena's team struck, catching them off guard, the Arcturans scrambled to respond. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as missiles and laser fire streaked between the ships. "Stay sharp," Elena shouted over the comm system, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Stick to the plan." The battle was intense, but the humans fought with everything they had. Their smaller ships darted around the larger Imperial vessels, avoiding heavy fire while targeting weak points. One by one, the enemy ships fell, their hulls breaking apart in bursts of flame. By the time the fight ended, half the convoy was destroyed, and the rest had fled. Back at the command center, Daniel watched the footage of the battle with a mixture of pride and dread. "It worked," he said quietly, "but this is just the start." Elena nodded, her expression grim. "They'll come harder next time," she said, "and we still don't have enough ships." Despite the victory, the cost was high. 2 of the human ships were lost, along with their crews. Families mourned their loved ones, and the weight of sacrifice hung heavy in the air. But there was no time to grieve. The Empire wouldn't wait, and neither could humanity. As the days passed, the fleet grew stronger. More ships rolled out of the factories, each one better than the last. Pilots trained harder, learning from every skirmish. Engineers like Rachel pushed the limits of what was possible, creating new technologies that gave humanity a fighting chance. But everyone knew the real test was yet to come. The Empire was gathering its full strength, preparing for a final assault on Earth. "We've bought ourselves some time," Liam said during a briefing. "But when they come again, it'll be all-out war." Elena looked at him, her jaw set. "Then we'll be ready," she said. And deep down, she hoped they were right. The day finally came when humanity's fleet was ready to strike back. After months of preparation, the ships gathered near the edge of the solar system, their engines glowing faintly against the endless blackness of space. Elena Rivera stood on the bridge of *Aurora*, her eyes scanning the rows of monitors that displayed the positions of every ship in the fleet. Beside her, Daniel Carter studied the navigation charts, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We're outnumbered," Liam O'Connor said bluntly, pointing to a map showing the Empire's forces. "They got at least 3 times as many ships as we do." "But they don't know what we're capable of," Elena replied, her voice steady. "That's our advantage." The plan was risky but necessary. Instead of waiting for the Empire to attack Earth again, humanity would take the fight directly to Arcturus Prime, the heart of the Arcturan Empire. It was a bold move, one that could either save Earth or lead to its total destruction. But sitting back and defending wasn't an option anymore. The Empire had already shown it wouldn't stop until humanity was wiped out. Rachel Monroe stayed behind on Earth, monitoring the mission from the lab. She communicated with the fleet through secure channels, ready to adjust systems remotely if anything went wrong. "You've got this," she told Alina over the comm link before the fleet launched. Her voice wavered slightly, betraying her worry, but she forced herself to sound confident. As the fleet moved closer to enemy territory, tension filled the air. Pilots checked their controls repeatedly, making sure everything was working perfectly. Engineers ran last-minute diagnostics on the ships, ensuring no detail was overlooked. Everyone knew that failure meant not just losing the battle, but losing Earth forever. The first sign of trouble came when Imperial patrols spotted them. Small squadrons of enemy fighters swarmed toward the fleet, firing beams of energy that lit up the darkness. Alina gave the order to engage, and the humans responded instantly. Their ships darted through the chaos, using speed and agility to outmaneuver the larger, slower Imperial vessels. "Stay sharp," Alina shouted over the comm system. "Stick to the formations." The battle was fierce. Laser blasts streaked across space, narrowly missing the human ships as they twisted and turned to avoid fire. One pilot, a young woman named Karen, managed to disable 2 enemy fighters with a single well-placed shot. Cheers erupted over the comm channel, but there was no time to celebrate. More enemies were coming, and the humans couldn't afford to let their guard down. Liam coordinated the fleet's movements from his command ship, calling out orders to keep everyone in position. "Focus on their engines," he barked. "We can't destroy all of them, but we can slow them down." The strategy worked. By targeting key parts of the enemy ships, the humans were able to cripple several vessels without fully destroying them. This created obstacles for the rest of the Imperial forces, slowing their advance and giving the fleet precious time to regroup. As they pushed deeper into enemy territory, the stakes grew higher. The fleet encountered heavier resistance, including massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. These ships were far more dangerous than anything they'd faced before, and even the smallest mistake could mean disaster. Alina led a daring maneuver to take down one of the dreadnoughts. Using Rachel's calculations, she guided Aurora in a tight slingshot around a nearby moon, catching the enemy off guard. The sudden burst of speed allowed her to get close enough to fire directly at the dreadnought's weak point, a vulnerable spot near its core. The shot hit true, and the dreadnought exploded in a blinding flash of light. The success boosted morale, but Alina knew they were still outnumbered. "Keep moving," she ordered. "We're not done yet." Behind her, Daniel watched the screens, tracking their progress toward Arcturus Prime. He felt a mix of pride and fear as he saw how far they'd come. Humanity had started as nothing in the eyes of the Empire, but now they were fighting back with everything they had. "This is it," he murmured to himself. "No turning back." And deep down, he hoped they were ready for what lay ahead. The fleet pushed onward, battered but determined. After taking down the dreadnought, Alina Rivera led Aurora and the rest of the ships closer to Arcturus Prime, the Empire's capital. The journey was anything but smooth. Imperial forces regrouped quickly, sending wave after wave of fighters and bombers to stop them. Each skirmish left the humans with fewer ships and dwindling supplies, but they pressed on, driven by sheer willpower. Liam O'Connor worked tirelessly to keep the fleet organized. From his command ship, he barked orders over the comm system, directing pilots to cover damaged vessels and repositioning ships to protect their flanks. "Stay close," he shouted during one particularly intense fight. "If we spread out, they'll pick us off one by one." Alina focused on keeping morale high. She knew fear could spread as fast as fire in a fleet this small. Over the comm channel, she reminded everyone why they were fighting. "This isn't just for Earth," she said firmly. "It's for every person who ever doubted we could stand up to them. Show them what humanity is made of." The words resonated with the crew. Even exhausted pilots found new energy, pushing their ships harder than before. One young pilot named Chris managed to dodge a barrage of enemy fire and return fire, destroying 2 Imperial fighters in quick succession. Cheers erupted over the comlink, a rare moment of light in the darkness of war. As they approached Arcturus Prime, the Empire unleashed its full might. Massive orbital defense platforms opened fire, sending beams of energy slicing through space. The human ships scattered, weaving between the deadly blasts. Rachel Monroe monitored everything from Earth, her fingers flying across keyboards as she adjusted shields and rerouted power to critical systems. "Hold together," she urged the fleet, her voice strained. "Just a little longer." Elena spotted an opening, a weak point in the orbital defenses where two platforms overlapped. It was risky, but it was their only chance to break through. She called Daniel Carter to confirm her plan. "If we time it right, we can slip past them," she said, "but we'll need perfect coordination." Daniel studied the data for a moment, then nodded. "Do it," he replied. With Elena leading the charge, the fleet executed a daring maneuver. Using precise timing and split-second decisions, they darted between the overlapping fields of fire, narrowly avoiding destruction. For a few heart-stopping seconds, it seemed like the plan would fail. But then, one by one, the ships broke through, emerging into the clear skies above Arcturus Prime. The sight that greeted them was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The planet below was a fortress, covered in sprawling cities and bristling with weapons. At its center stood the Imperial Palace, a towering structure that gleamed under artificial sunlight. This was the heart of the Empire, and the humans were about to strike it. "We've done the impossible," Daniel said quietly, watching the view screen. "Now comes the hard part." Elena didn't respond. Her hands gripped the controls of Aurora *, her focus razor-sharp. "All units, prepare for landing," she ordered. "We're finishing this." Ground teams began descending toward the palace, escorted by fighter squadrons. Resistance was fierce, with Imperial troops pouring out of bunkers and fortifications. Explosions rocked the landscape as battles raged on multiple fronts. Elena stayed airborne, coordinating attacks and providing cover for the ground forces. Inside the palace, Emperor Calvortha watched the chaos unfold on his monitors. His expression shifted from disbelief to fury. "How dare they?" he roared, slamming his fist on the armrest of his throne. He ordered his personal guard to escort him to safety, refusing to face the invaders himself. Meanwhile, Daniel joined a group of soldiers storming the palace gates. Bullets whizzed past him as he ran, adrenaline keeping him moving despite the danger. "Keep pushing," he yelled to the others. "We're almost there." Back in space, Liam kept the fleet intact, fending off waves of enemy reinforcements. "Hold the line," he shouted. "Give the ground teams time to finish the job." For the first time, the Empire looked vulnerable. Humanity had struck a blow it couldn't ignore, and the end was finally in sight. The ground team, led by Daniel Carter, pushed through the palace gates, their weapons blazing. The air was thick with smoke and the sharp crack of gunfire as Imperial guards tried to hold them back. Each step forward was a struggle, but the humans fought with everything they had. They knew this was their chance to end the war, and they weren't going to let it slip away. Inside the grand hall of the Imperial Palace, Emperor Calvortha retreated to his throne room. His arrogance had turned to panic as he realized the invaders were closing in. "Seal the doors," he shouted at his guards. "No one gets in." He paced back and forth, his mind racing. For centuries, the Empire had ruled unchallenged, crushing any resistance without mercy. Now, a group of primitive beings from Earth was threatening to destroy everything he had built. Daniel's team reached the throne room after fighting their way through wave after wave of guards. The heavy doors blocking their path were locked, but Rachel Monroe remotely hacked into the palace's security system from Earth. "I've got it," she said over the comlink. "Stand back." A loud hiss filled the air as the locks disengaged, and the doors slid open. Elena Rivera joined the ground team moments later, having landed Aurora nearby. Her armor was scratched and scorched from battle, but her determination hadn't wavered. She moved to the front of the group as they entered the throne room, her weapon raised. Kale stood near his massive throne, surrounded by a small group of loyal guards. He sneered at the humans, still refusing to see them as equals. "You think you can defeat me?" he spat. "You're nothing but insects." Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Your reign ends here," he said. "Earth isn't afraid of you anymore." Kale laughed bitterly. "You'll never take me alive," he declared, reaching for a hidden control panel behind his throne. Before anyone could react, the floor beneath him opened, revealing an escape pod. "Stop him," Elena shouted. The team opened fire, but the Emperor dove into the pod just in time. The hatch sealed shut, and the pod launched into the sky. Liam O'Connor, coordinating the fleet above, spotted the pod on his sensors. "He's trying to run," Liam said over the comm system. "I'll intercept." Using one of the smaller ships, Liam chased the pod through the atmosphere. It was fast, but Liam's maneuvers were precise. After a tense chase, he managed to disable the pod's engines with a well-placed shot. The pod spiraled out of control before crashing into a nearby desert. Back at the palace, the remaining Imperial forces began to surrender. Without their emperor, their will to fight crumbled. Resistance movements across the Empire saw this as their moment to rise up. Planets that had suffered under Arcturan rule for centuries now rebelled, eager to overthrow their oppressors. Elena and Daniel stood in the throne room, catching their breath. Around them, soldiers cheered and embraced, celebrating their hard-fought victory. But Elena's expression remained serious. "It's not over yet," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "We've won this battle, but rebuilding won't be easy." News of the Emperor's capture spread quickly. When Liam arrived at the crash site, he found Kale stumbling out of the wreckage, battered but alive. The once mighty ruler looked small and defeated, his pride shattered. Liam cuffed him without a word and radioed the others. "Mission complete," he said simply. As the Empire fell apart, humanity took its first steps toward a new future. The cost had been high, ships lost, lives sacrificed, but the dream of freedom was finally within reach. Elena looked out at the horizon, her heart heavy but hopeful. "This is just the beginning," she said softly, and for the first time, in a long time, she believed it. With the Emperor captured and the Empire in chaos, humanity faced a new challenge: rebuilding. The war had left Earth scared, its cities in ruins and its people weary. But despite the devastation, there was a sense of hope. For the first time, humanity stood tall among the stars, no longer seen as weak or insignificant. Marcus Hale addressed a global assembly, urging unity as Earth began to heal. "We've proven we can stand together," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "Now it's time to build something better, not just for us, but for future generations." His words resonated deeply, inspiring nations to work side by side. Resources were shared, borders opened, and efforts focused on recovery. Factories once used to build weapons now produced materials to repair homes and infrastructure. Elena Rivera returned to Earth after the battle, her body exhausted but her spirit unbroken. She walked through the streets of her hometown, which had been heavily damaged during the Empire's attacks. Families were working to rebuild, their faces showing both pain and determination. A young boy approached her, holding a toy spaceship. "Are you one of the pilots?" he asked, his eyes wide with admiration. Elena knelt down and smiled. "I am," she said softly. "And someday, maybe you'll fly among the stars too." Daniel Carter spent his days helping scientists study the alien technology they had captured. The stolen blueprints and remnants of Imperial ships provided insights that could change Earth's future. New engines, energy sources, and medical advancements emerged from their research, bringing progress faster than anyone had imagined. Daniel often thought about how far they had come, from being mocked by the Empire to standing as equals among the stars. Rachel Monroe continued to innovate, using what she had learned to improve life on Earth. She designed cleaner energy systems and faster transportation methods, ensuring that humanity would never again be caught unprepared. Her lab became a hub of creativity, attracting brilliant minds from around the world. Liam O'Connor took on a new role, training a new generation of pilots and soldiers. Though the Empire was gone, he knew the galaxy was vast and unpredictable. Humanity needed to stay strong and vigilant. The war taught us something important, he told his students. Strength isn't just about weapons. It's about courage, teamwork, and never giving up. Freed planets across the galaxy reached out to Earth, grateful for liberation. Ambassadors traveled to these worlds, forging alliances and sharing knowledge. Humanity's reputation grew, earning respect and trust from species who had once feared the Empire's wrath. One evening, Alina stood on a hill outside the rebuilt observatory where it all began. The sky was clear, dotted with countless stars. Daniel joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "It's strange, isn't it?" he said, handing her one of the cups. "What is?" she asked, taking the sip. "Looking at the stars now," he replied. "Before, they felt so distant, like something we could never reach. Now, they feel closer." Alina nodded, gazing at the horizon. "We've earned our place here," she said. "But this isn't the end. There's still so much to explore, so much to learn." Daniel smiled faintly. "And so many challenges ahead." Alina turned to him, her expression serious but hopeful. "That's what makes it exciting. We've shown we can face anything as long as we stick together." In the months that followed, humanity stepped forward into a new era. Ships launched into space, not to fight, but to discover. Colonies were established on distant planets, and trade routes connected Earth to its allies. The scars of war remained, but they served as reminders of how far humanity had come, and how much farther it could go. As Aurora soared through the stars on a mission of exploration, Alina sat in the cockpit, her hand steady on the controls. Beside her, Daniel checked the navigation systems, pointing out constellations they had yet to visit. "This is just the beginning," Alina said, echoing her earlier words. "Yes," Daniel agreed, "and I can't wait to see what comes next." Together, they looked ahead, ready to face whatever challenges lay beyond. Humanity had risen from the ashes, proving that even the smallest spark could light up the galaxy.